Hello everyone! Today we are diving into one of the trickiest aspects of learning Portuguese, understanding the differences between the imperfeito and pretérito perfeito simples tenses. These two past tenses are essential for telling stories and describing events in the past, but choosing the right one can be challenging, especially for English speakers. But let's try to understand why is this so difficult. Well, we will see that unlike in English, where we generally use simple past for most completed actions, Portuguese requires a deeper understanding of the context. So we will see that this imperfeito lets you describe ongoing or habitual actions in the past, while the PPS, pretérito perfeito, is used for more specific and completed actions in the past. Getting this right can change the entire meaning of what you are trying to say. By the end of this presentation, I hope you will not only know when to use each tense, but also understand how they bring stories and memories to life in Portuguese. And let's get started. Let's start by taking a closer look at why understanding the difference, for example, of eu comi and eu comia can be so difficult to understand. Well, in Portuguese, the first idea, eu comi, which is written in the PPS, and the next one, eu comia, written in the imperfeito, they represent two distinct past tenses that convey different nuances of time and action. I understand that the challenge arises because in English, or the English language, does not have a direct equivalent for this distinction. In English, the simple past tense is often only used to cover both specific completed actions, like I ate, and ongoing or habitual actions in the past. I ate doesn't tell you specifically if the action is finished in the past or if it was an ongoing habitual actions in the past. But in Portuguese, these nuances are captured by separate tenses. The PPS, eu comi, describes something that is completed in the past, while eu comia, in the imperfeito, describes an ongoing, habitual, or even a background action in the past. For English speakers who aren't used to making this distinction, it requires a shift in thinking and a deeper understanding of how past actions are framed in Portuguese. As we continue, we will explore examples that will illustrate these differences more clearly. For now, this is just a very short introduction, especially in understanding why is it so difficult for English speakers to understand that there are two main past tenses in Portuguese that are translated the same way into the English language. Another example on understanding why it's so difficult for English to understand the imperfeito versus the PPS, the perfect tense, is, for example, the existence of the simple past tense in English. I was is used for most past actions, whether they are completed, whether they are habitual or ongoing. In English, there is not a clear-cut distinguish like there is in Portuguese. So, when you see written in Portuguese, eu estava or eu estive, they can just be simply translated the same way into English and just simply be I was. Among the various examples on how to explain the imperfeito, I usually like to describe these tense as the present of the past. Remember this, the present of the past. And why is this? Because this tense, which is also used in other Romance languages, it is used as a means for us to describe how things were in the past. And we are going to see that this tense will emphasize the ongoing or the habitual actions during that period of time. What is more important that you understand in making the distinguish between the imperfect and the perfect tense in Portuguese is that both are completely finished when comparing to the present. But the PPS, it is a past tense used to describe a finished action in the past that started and is finished in the past, while the imperfeito is a tense that is used to describe as an action that started but is still happening, it is still a fact, it's still ongoing in that reality. Let's now see a very good and clear example. Imagine you are setting a past scene right now. You want to tell a story. And you want to say in English, you want to say in Portuguese, the house was big and had a beautiful garden. Or, like this picture says, the houses were big and they had gardens. So, how will this be said in Portuguese? Think about that. Look at the picture again. Do you think that the actions in the past are still ongoing? Are the houses in this picture still big and still having gardens? Or do you see houses in this picture that are no longer big and no longer have a garden? So, how will you think you will say again, the house was big and had a beautiful garden? Will you use the perfect or the imperfect tense? All these problems arise because you may be wondering precisely what is the best way to say that. Will you say, a casa foi grande e teve jardim bonito? That is still, the house was big and had a beautiful garden in Portuguese. So that is written using the perfect tense or the PPS. Or will you actually in turn say, a casa era grande e tinha jardim bonito, and using the imperfect tense? Again, the big issue with when trying to translate that is that no matter what, both of these sentences will be translated the same way into English. The house was big and had a beautiful garden. However, these two sentences in Portuguese carry different meanings. And this is why it is so important to really understand when to use the PPS and when to use the imperfeito. As such, if you have chosen the imperfeito, correct. In this context, we would really say a casa era grande e tinha jardim bonito. So, look at this picture right now. What do you see? And this is what you'll have to imagine when you will be using the imperfeito. It's like going to this past scenario and you are exactly describing how the house in that story is. So the house in the story is big and the house has a beautiful garden. And I'm on purpose saying everything in the present tense to be linked to what I previously said about why the imperfeito is usually thought to be the present of the past. So the house was big and had a beautiful garden. This has to be exactly written in the imperfeito for us, and the speaker, the listener, sorry, that listens to you, have exactly this representation in their brain and not the other way around. Let's look at this other very strange meaning. What if you have used the perfect tense to describe that? To describe by mistake the house was big and had a beautiful garden. So, if by any chance you said a casa foi grande e teve jardim bonito, the speaker is going to have a very strange, the listener is going to have a very strange representation in his brain. Why is that? Because most likely this is what we will think. We are going to imagine a house that was once very big but no longer is in the story and had a beautiful garden but no longer has a beautiful garden in the story. So remember again, these both tenses concerning the present or comparing them to the present, all of these actions are finished. But this is about describing things in the past. And for that, we really use the imperfeito because we want to describe how things are back in that past tense. So if you are describing, because it may happen, if you are describing and you by any chance say the perfect tense, the representations are indeed quite different. I'm going to think, if I hear that, this is what will come to my mind. And that's not what you are trying to convey.